A diagnosis of breast cancer can cause a life-changing ripple effect of impact, affecting those we love the most and those upon whom we lean for comfort and strength in the most challenging of times. My name is Aisling Hurley. I'm the CEO of Breast Cancer Ireland, and you're listening to More Than a Lump, a podcast where we discuss the personal experiences of our guests with breast cancer. As we conclude this third season and take a little pause, we thought it would be a good idea to look back and reflect on some of the standout moments. Throughout this past season, we have had the privilege of talking to a diverse group of guests about their experiences with breast cancer. From the emotional impact of the diagnosis to the practical aspects of treatment and recovery, we've explored it all. Through these conversations, one thing was very clear: breast cancer is more than a lump. It has the power to impact every aspect of a person's life and the lives of those around them, including their families, their relationships, and their own hopes for the future. But what our guests also taught us is that we are stronger than we know. Resilience, power and hope can be found in the face of adversity. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsors Care Plus Pharmacy for their support throughout this season. As Ireland's leading community pharmacy brand, they offer expert advice and services to help people lead healthier and happier lives. In the first episode of this third season, we took a look back at the year that was and we shared our plans for the year ahead. Then we jumped straight into a great conversation with mental health advocate Niall Breslin, Brezzy as you all know him, who shared his personal experience of facing his own health challenge, and he gave us some great tips on using our breath as our superpower.
So when you're overwhelmed, right? Here's the key: is you need to get out of your head. The last place you want to be when the mind is running riot is in the mind. It isn't going to solve your problems for you. It's get into the body. So what I do is and you can't see this, well, you might have camera there, but I start rolling my thumb and my finger beside my thumb. See the index finger, isn't it? Start rolling the two of them together really fast. And I start pretending that's my mind. It's really busy. Really, really busy. Look how fast my mind is. So you're acknowledging you have a busy mind. And you start to breathe, and really what you're trying to do is just be wary of the contact between the two fingers. Just focus on the contact between the two fingers and breathe. And you really just focus, and then start to slow it down. Start to slow the circles down, as if the mind you're actually asking the mind to slow down, and you're getting out of the body and out of the mind into the body. And you can do this when you're lying in bed. If you wake up in the middle of the night, if you're having a bit of a nightmare, acknowledge the mind is busy. Don't pretend otherwise, but just start to slow it down. But what you're doing is you're getting into the body, and that's slowing down the brain. Yeah. The brain's getting into what we call the neocortex, which is the rational thinking. You're getting out of the limbic system, or the amygdala hijack. I know this is all a bit, brainy, but it's good to know this stuff. And the other one I do that is really effective is when you're lying in bed, take 20 breaths, and with each breath, imagine the body getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. I mean, you're bet into the bed now. You're like lead. By the 20th, you're sunk into the bed. Then take 20 breaths and imagine the body getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter till you're almost floating. It's 40 breaths and you're focusing on the weight and the light. And what you're doing is you're getting in to this present moment functionally, and you're stopping this overwhelm. So the next time you feel overwhelmed and you go, that worked for me last time. Yeah. I can use that again. And I can use that again. You're going for lunch with your kids and you don't get, and it's an hour and you're putting all this pressure on yourself, going for lunch with the kids. They're probably worried about me. I have to do all this stuff and I have to make sure. Just get present with them. Yeah. Get present with them by doing these types of techniques. And the last breath, I call it the tranquilizer breath, which is probably a terrible name for it, but it's because it really makes me sleepy and it makes me very, very, very relaxed. So you have 2 more breaths. I'll give you way too much. 4, 7, 8 breathing. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8, and do that 10 times, and you will feel slightly drunk. It's the best way to describe it. All this oxygen going to the brain. You're becoming very functionally present, and it's just in through the nose for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8. Even doing that, I feel my tummy feels relaxed. 10 of them. So start building these into your everyday. And the other one is cadence breathing. Slow your respiratory rate down to 6 breaths a minute. So we usually take about 14 breaths, 16 breaths a minute. If you're anxious, you're going to take about 20 breaths a minute. So when you start to cadence breathe, which is 6, so all you have to do is, I do this watching TV at night, because I have to really calm myself down before I go to bed, because I have a very racy head. So I breathe in for 5 in my left hand, and I breathe out for 5 in my right hand. And I just do that for 10 minutes. No one even knows I'm doing it. Do that for 10 minutes. And what you're doing is you're settling down the respiratory rate, you're settling down the mind and the brain, the body. The body knows it's now getting ready to rest.
I didn't think I would, but I have been trying out some of Niall's breathing techniques myself over the past few weeks, and they actually do really work. With Niall's permission, we've created a little infographic to share these techniques with you. Check out our Instagram grid and our website for more. In episode 3, we explored a tricky subject of the impact a diagnosis can have on relationships, dating and intimacy. And we were joined by psychotherapist and psychosocial oncologist Yvonne O'Mara, hosted by a great friend of Breast Cancer Ireland, Claire McKenna, along with our friend and patient ambassador, Teresa Costello, who was diagnosed in her early 30s.
The main thing is that somebody going through breast cancer and treatment is still human, with needs for fun and a time to push what they're going through to the back of their mind and just, forget about it for a bit. So when I was going through my chemo, guys did ask me out, and I did go out on dates, nothing serious, but it opened my eyes to the inherent goodness in people, and the good guys don't care. They're connecting with a person, and everything else falls into place. If a person can be absolutely fantastic looking standing in front of you, if they are not nice, that you can't see their beauty anymore. So that's where that's a lesson that I've learned. And like with Tom, when I met him, he knew I had breast cancer, and it was never really there was never really an issue. My hair was short at the time, and I hated my hair short. And he'd sometimes slag me now, going, "Remember I went out with you when you had short hair?" But we joke about a lot of things. We've a good friendship. He's a good person. We have a good relationship, and it's nothing matters. Like the fact I had breast cancer doesn't matter. The fact that I have had a mastectomy doesn't matter. We have a very healthy, good relationship, and we work together as a team. We're compatible, and there is times, and I do feel sorry for him at times, because I can have bouts where I can get a sense of fear that comes over me, that I'm going, life is good, and do I deserve this? Something bad's going to happen. Will I get a reoccurrence? And, that can be tough on him, watching me go through one of those phases. But it was an unusual place to get together with somebody, but you have to take these opportunities when they come to you.
You certainly do, and have your eye open for opportunity.
The fabulous Rachel McKenna was our guest in episode 4. Rachel is living with cancer and the face of our Metastatic Matters campaign. Her story was truly powerful, and we thank her for sharing it with us.
Felt I needed to apologise for it, because I felt so, it's hard to explain, but I just was thinking, I don't want to have to put this hassle or this worry on anyone, or particularly on somebody who I love, like my friends and family. I don't want to have to put them in a position where they're upset and they're worrying. And I was just like, I'm so sorry, I've got cancer. And
but you really didn't know the full extent.
At that time, we had absolutely no idea. It was the following day I was admitted to a hospital. They started doing tests, which was excruciating because I couldn't lie. So it was MRI and CT scans, and then there were biopsies and everything done. The next 2 days was just an absolute whirlwind, if I'm honest. And I remember then they came, and I can't even remember who it was. I think it was my consultant, and he said, "It's breast cancer." And I remember thinking to myself, that's okay. Right, it's cancer, but it's breast cancer. There's loads of innovations. And I was just thinking, what? Cut it off. The bad boys have had their run, get rid of it. We'll reconstruct. We'll do whatever. It'll be fine. And then I remember ringing Aidan, it's like, it's breast cancer. And he was like, okay, oh, right, that's grand, we can deal with that. And then it was like, okay, so we're going to operate, or what's the story? And then it was like, no, because it's actually travelled to your bones. And so it's kind of, they don't give you, well, I certainly didn't get the exact prognosis or diagnosis at that time. I just got told, I suppose, because there's so many, they're waiting on so many test results. And I think we had spoken about it before. It's like a jigsaw, like you're waiting for all of the pieces to come together until you can see that clear picture. So yeah, they didn't operate or anything like that. And I remember the consultant came and told me, and then there's an oncology nurse who sat down, and I remember she was saying, she had said like, yeah, the cancer's had a good run for its money in the body at that time. And it was kind of then when I realised, okay, this isn't something simple. This isn't just, cancer, let's rip it out, get on with life. This is something that's a lot more. And then I suppose over time, you meet your consultant, and I remember asking him, I said, what's the exact diagnosis? And he said it is stage 4 metastatic breast and bone cancer. And he says, I need to make you aware that this is very, very serious and it's very aggressive.
Back in season 1, mum of 3, Paula McLean, came into our studio to talk about her story about being diagnosed with stage 2 invasive breast cancer at the age of just 42. She spoke to us about the decision at the time to have the lump that she found just before a friend's wedding checked out. She talked about her subsequent treatment journey and the impact on family life. She joined us again in season 3, episode 5, as a guest host. She digs deeper, talking about the emotional scars that remain with her 11 years later. Paula was joined by the effervescent Lisa Convey, a fellow breast cancer survivor who, despite her anxieties about doing the podcast and having travelled across the country from County Mayo to be with us, told her story for the first time to us here in Breast Cancer Ireland. And my goodness, what a journey Lisa has been on. Lynn Buckley's story was equally emotional. Diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer at just 33 years of age and 26 weeks pregnant, she shared her experience of simply getting on with things.
One thing I've thought about, some parts of it do make me really think about life. Would I be as strong as I am now if I hadn't been through it? Would my family be different? Would my relationships with my kids and family and everybody have been different? Probably there were those couple of years that I don't remember a huge amount of it because you're in survival mode really, even though the kids were so small and you're doing
ticking
your
boxes.
best to look after it.
And when you're in active treatment, you kind of have treatment keeping you going. Like I remember finishing chemo and walking out the door bawling, crying. And I don't want to leave you. And they're like, this is a good thing, your chemo is finished.
It's like in free fall.
Yeah, and you're kind of put out. And then I remember finishing radium. And I remember meeting a lovely lady that was finished as well, and she said, my mother told me something when you're finished treatment, and this always stuck with me. She said, it's nearly like you come out of the tumble dryer, because she was like, watch yourself now after this, because just because the treatment is finished doesn't mean everything's okay, And she said, it's like you nearly come out the tumble dryer, where you kind of have to, you have to be spun around, and now you need to straighten yourself out.
Yeah,
and she said, that takes a long while, and it always stuck with me because you couldn't describe it better, really,
It's the hardest, I think, after.
Yeah.
Because you feel like your safety net is gone.
And people leave you a little as well because they think, okay, well, your treatment is done, you're okay. And then I find, that was the hardest part. It was, the years after it are what are hardest,
part. And, I really thought about that a lot as well after that. And the people who love you, this I feel, wish you well and want you to be well. And it's very hard then to keep having that conversation going because you love them, your husband, your parents, your kids. You kind of go, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm brilliant and I'm super and I'm finished treatments and I'm in a $1 million and my hair is growing back. But deep in your heart, that's not how you feel at all. No. How did you deal with that?
I had panic attacks. I had nightmares. I would break down in the shower crying when I was by myself. I'd hear any sad story of someone passing away with cancer, and I was in a morgue. And I went and I saw a counsellor fairly soon after my treatment finished, but I wasn't ready. It didn't work. I didn't gel with them because I think it was too soon. I did it about a year later, and I don't think I was in the right headspace. And I did it about maybe 15, 18 months ago, and actually it was great. And I learned to leave it out and to accept what happened to me, and I think that was the biggest thing, accepting it. You still don't like it that happened to me,
of course.
but I've accepted it, and I think I've dealt with it, and it's made me a lot stronger. And as I said, I don't sweat the small stuff. I'm not around people that don't,
You kind of cut out.
You cut out that drama, and you just don't need that, and I think it has made me way stronger as a person, my main priority is my family, my kids, making memories with them, and just enjoying life, making the most of it, and my nightmare all the time was my daughter was only 3 when I was diagnosed, and she was starting school the following year, and it was, am I going to see her even start school? Never mind my baby start walking or anything, will I see her start school, now she's in 3rd class, so it's great.
Yeah.
In episode 6, we discussed the difficult subject of bereavement with Breast Cancer Ireland board member Paul Gallagher and his daughter Kate. It was quite an emotional conversation, but we were heartened by their fond memories of their beloved Marie.
This is the type of person Marie was. There was a young girl in, and I saw always wear the blue pinstripe suits at the time, part of the job, going in and out of different customers, and I'd have the pinstripe suit on. So a lot of people thought, and I'd bring me work with me, a lot of people used to say, hello professor, hello doctor to me when I'd be going in and out of the hospital to the wards, and the nurses would all be saying, hello, how are you? And they thought I was a consultant or whatever. And so I used to go in, but there was this young couple, and they were canoodling, for the want of a better word, 6 beds in the ward, and they were kissing and hugging, and I said, what's going on there? And Marie says, do you know that they only got married? And anyways, and I said, Jesus, no, and she's not well, I said, fair enough. So Marie had been talking to them about the girl, I can't remember what her name was, but she was an AIB, from head office, an AIB staff member. And Marie says to her, do you know what you should do now? She says, between now and your next treatment, she says, you need to get away to the sun. You need to get away to the sun. I said, we haven't had the honeymoon yet. Blah, blah, blah. So, about 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm looking at Marie, and I said, we're into the hospital, and I said, what's this on my Visa card? This booking of flights. Are we going somewhere? And some apartment in Algeria, over in Spain. Oh, she said, don't mind that. I said, I don't mind it. I said, what's going on? And she said, do you know the couple that's over there? She said, I booked her and her husband to go to Spain before they have their next treatment.
Anne Nolan of the fabulous Nolan sisters joined us for episode 7, sharing her family's experiences with breast cancer.
First one, I think because my kids were young, and I kind of, and I was with my husband then, I'm not with him now. He was fantastic. He helped me through a lot. My kids were young, so I had to kind of focus on them, not let them, the first thing I said, it's going to be fine. I told them what it was, but I said, I'm going to be fine. Don't, there's nothing to worry about. And we kind of, and the world was a different place then. I was able to go out, go to the theatre, go out with my sisters, go for meals, go for walks. The second time around, it was a totally different scenario because it was during COVID. Okay. So I couldn't go out. I couldn't see my kids. I couldn't see my grandkids. I got horrendous anxiety because my oncologist said that if you contact COVID, it will be fatal with you having chemotherapy. So I got really bad anxiety. I ended up in hospital for 11 days, and they couldn't find anything really wrong. It was purely anxiety. And it was because I used to be sitting in my sister Maureen moved in with me, and she was absolutely amazing. She looked after me and fed me, and she used to make me meals and bring them in, and I'd look at them and go, I can't eat that. And she'd go, I'm not that bad a cook, really. So I used to feel sorry for her as well, But yeah, so it was totally different the second time. It was nobody there, right, except for Maureen, really. I got letters and I got gifts sent through the post. I didn't have human contact, you know. It was the same for Linda. She had her cancer as well through COVID, and we were able to comfort each other. We went for chemotherapy together. We had it in the oncology unit together. Yeah, so that did help, all of that. But yeah, it was a horrendous, as it was for millions of people. Mm-hmm, it was a horrendous time in all kinds of ways. But I think going through something like cancer during COVID was really, really
particularly hard. There are many different breast cancer subtypes, and patient advocate Siobhan Freeney was our guest in episode 8. She shared her journey with lobular breast cancer and the advocacy work she does now.
If lobular represents 15% of breast cancer in women, well then ought we to be looking for 15% of the funding to research it? Mm-hmm. And we need to put out a call for lobular breast cancer funding for research. It's critical, really. You know, and now's the time. Sure. You know, it's the right time. Yeah. The science is there, and the research is there, and the collaborations are there, and there's you can feel the shift. It kind of gives me a little bit of a, you know, I'm getting the buzz out of it, but right. The hair stands at the back of my neck because when I was diagnosed, there was nothing about lobular breast cancer.
But it just shows how far things have evolved, which is great. But as you say, it does need that next step. Yep. We can't stand still. We just need to keep investing. We need to invest full stop in lobular, because we do invest in triple negative, we do invest in HER2, we do invest in other subtypes. But I hear what you're saying is that investment is needed in the lobular arena, for
100%, and I'm so happy to hear you saying that.
Finally, menopause specialist Dr. Genevieve Ferraris from the Menopause Hub joined us for episode 9. We talked about the impact of breast cancer treatment on the early onset of menopause and the role of nutrition, exercise and education in managing menopause symptoms. We also spoke about the controversy surrounding HRT treatment and its uses and benefits. And in your experience, when you have younger patients like that, what is your advice? Like, is your advice, yes, go down your treatment route, obviously, that you've been prescribed by your team, potentially look at whatever fertility after that. Do you advise on HRT or other treatments to help them get through that early menopausal stage? And indeed, can they reverse it?
So it depends. If the medication that they're taking is inducing menopausal symptoms, then theoretically the cessation of that medication will reverse the symptoms. Yeah. Because something like tamoxifen can give you menopausal symptoms. Okay. However, if your symptoms are as a result of reduced ovarian function because of something like chemotherapy, it's unlikely that you would regain that function. Yeah. And so that's actually a really complex patient, because she's young and we know she needs estrogen for her bone health. But if we give her estrogen in the setting of breast cancer, it could make that issue worse.
It's absolutely. Yeah.
So typically those patients would need to complete their breast cancer therapy, get the all clear from that perspective, and then we need to have a discussion with their breast surgeon and their oncologist and find out, how do we manage this patient going forward so that we're not increasing her breast cancer recurrence, but we're also not putting her at an excess risk of things like osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, like most things, the HRT treatment has advanced over the years. I'm sure like 30 years ago, I remember my mum went on HRT and she soon came back off it because it didn't agree. But I'm sure that things have moved on. We've made huge advances in so many other ways that I'm sure HRT has become much more tolerable.
Yeah, absolutely. So 20 years ago, the treatment that was offered to most women was conjugated equine estrogen. So that comes from horses. And for a lot of women, that would not be an option at this point. Okay. So the way that estrogen is delivered now for most women is what we call bioidentical HRT. So that means that it's a molecule which is derived from plants. It has a chemical structure which is very similar and in fact almost identical to our own natural hormones. So it's better tolerated, it has a better side effect profile, and seems to have a better long-term safety risk as well. safety profile.
Very interesting, very interesting. And Genevieve, tell me, how long should women stay on HRT? I remember having a conversation, about 5-7 years ago, and hearing, 5 years is probably enough. Whereas now I'm not sure, maybe people can stay on it a lot longer.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it depends on the patient. So 5 years might be enough for her. She might be through her menopause after 5 years, no longer have symptoms, and so there's no longer need for her to take HRT. But for some women, unfortunately, they remain symptomatic for many years beyond what's considered the 5 to 7 year average of menopausal symptoms. So because the main aim of HRT is to improve the symptoms, if we're stopping it and a patient becomes symptomatic again, we're not really treating her problem. So a woman should be on it for as long as she needs to be on it.
Okay. And I suppose, how does the woman know when she's had enough taken or when she should continue to take it?
So we don't really know. We go on the average of, okay, it's been 5 to 7 years of being on HRT. Theoretically, you should be through your menopause. Why don't we wean you off a little bit and see how you feel? And say we reduce the dose of her estrogen and symptoms come back, we know she's definitely not ready to come off. Okay. Whereas maybe we wean, she's not getting hot flushes, okay, let's stop it, let's see how you feel. And if she feels great and symptoms don't come back, she can then stay off it.
Thank you for joining us for this Season 3 of More Than a Lump. We hope that these conversations have provided comfort, inspiration and insight to those affected by breast cancer. In the words of the late Orla Byrne, we are stronger than we know. This season certainly proves, if we were ever in doubt, that we are.